and welcome to another episode of From Ireland to Palestine. Our guest today is activist, author, and co-founder of Palestine Aid Ireland, Fra Hughes. He's made several trips to Palestine to deliver aid in person, and he's raised huge sums of money for Palestine, mostly just actually locally in Ireland here. He was also on the recent trip there, the March to Gaza, so he'll be telling us all about that and just his many years of struggling for free Palestine. So welcome, Fra.
Thank you very much, Patrick. It's a delight to be here, and congratulations not only on the podcast, but the brilliant work that's done by BDS Belfast, because without a doubt, it's the most steadfast group in Belfast. I mean, you guys are out every day. I see your stuff online on the internet, and I have a lot of respect for everything that you guys do.
No, it's likewise. It's the same. We do have a lot of really dedicated people in the group, and keeping it going every day is tricky, but we have enough people there who believe in it. And we're told all the time BDS is the main way to hit Israel. But likewise, we're big admirers of the work you do. I think the sums you've raised have been amazing for Gaza. And obviously that's the most direct way to help is by just giving money to people and getting food there. We'll get into that, obviously, the charity side of things. But I've read your book here, My Walk with Palestine, which is like a tale about your journey through Palestine activism over about a decade or so, right? I think the thing that sort of sparked your indignation about what's going on in Palestine in terms of a practical push to get involved in activism was Operation Cast Lead, as it was called in 2008, 2009. So tell us a bit about your response to that and how it sort of sparked you into action.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Well, I put things in context and kind of put the history into the activism. I used to have a guest house on the Cape Hill Road, so I was taking like online bookings. Now I was starting to use the internet. I had a lot of downtime. I was waiting for people to arrive and stuff. I'd be sitting in the house, went on Facebook. It's the first time I really started kind of encountering social media. I'd always had an interest in Palestine because growing up in Belfast, we saw the murals that used to be on the Beachmount Avenue, which was called like RPG Avenue. Yeah. And it had this big mural, and it had like a Palestinian with a keffiyeh and a Republican freedom fighter with a balaclava. Uh-huh. And above it, they were holding like an RPG between the two of them. And it said like PLO, IRA, one struggle. And the parallels between our history in Ireland, under British occupation, in my opinion, and the occupation under the British mandate and the Balfour Agreement and everything from the British that helped create the kind of embryonic state that then became Israel in 1948 with the expulsion of 750,000 people. So I'd always had a passing interest. And I remember, I think it was in 1982, so you had the hunger strikes in 81. And in 1982, I remember watching the Israeli army going all the way up to Beirut in Lebanon in order to force out the PLO. And the first thought in my mind was like, why is the PLO in Beirut? Why aren't they in Palestine? So that kind of got me into a wee bit of the history. And it was the Americans who then offered to give them safe passage to take them to places like Algeria and Tunisia. And the PLO left only under the auspices that their families would be safe in the Shatia and Sabra camps in Beirut, which I visited around like 2011. And then went in and butchered them. They sent in the Christian Phalange. So without getting into the whole history of the confessional state of Lebanon, being a previous kind of satellite colony of the French, where you have the Sunni Muslims, you have the Christians, you have the Druze, and you had all that internecine fighting for decades. But so really it was the internet. I see the internet really as like a modern day, the invention of the modern day press. If you remember before, you had the press invented and you had people being able to write what they wanted, print what they wanted, hand them out, sell them to people, to educate people. The church was the only place that people heard what's happening in the world or in their community. Yeah, and that's all control at the end of the day. So the internet, it's a blessing and a curse at the same time. But like it's opened up everything. We're watching a live genocide, not on mainstream media, not on the BBC, not on CNN, not on Sky News. We're watching it. I personally am watching it through Press TV. I'm watching it through Al Jazeera. Al Jazeera is good in Palestine, bad in nearly everything else, in my opinion. You know, and there's TRT. They're very similar because they're a Turkish outlet. But without digressing too much, so in Operation Cast Lead that you mentioned, I think it was like 345 children murdered during that.
Yeah.
And then you had the Mavi Marmara. So that was one of the freedom flotillas that sailed from Turkey, ostensibly to reach Gaza. Now, this was a big like flotilla of ships, and this was a big ship that they'd sent over, and it was filled with like wheelchairs, medicine, all types of aid to help break the siege on Gaza, which was imposed upon the people in Gaza into 2007. So the history behind that is that you had kind of Fatah and a Palestinian Authority in the West Bank. You also had Hamas in the West Bank, and you had Fatah and Hamas in Gaza. So what happened was the Americans and the Zionists said, we need Palestinians to speak with one voice. We can't make like a deal over in the West Bank and then a separate deal over in Gaza. We need one group to speak in one voice for the entirety of the Palestinian people. Now, that sounds reasonable. But what happened was when they had the plebiscite, when they had the vote, when they had the elections, the democratic choice of the people in Palestine was to elect Hamas. Then the Americans and the Israelis who called for democratic elections, who called for one voice to represent the Palestinian people, then said, well, I'm sorry, you've chosen the wrong Palestinian faction, so we're not only not going to accept the result of the election, but we're going to put you under siege. So then that led to a purge in the West Bank by the PA against Hamas, and Hamas being elected by the people in Gaza and the West Bank. They came to power in Gaza. So like I'm taking a long kind of route to get to the answer, but the Mavi Marmara was attacked several miles off the coast of Gaza. It was stormed by Israeli Marines and Zodiacs, and they came down from helicopters. Now, this boat was checked before it left Turkey. Customs, security, internal Turkish security, no guns, no weapons, no armed people, purely humanitarian aid going to Gaza. Then they stormed it in international waters. They murdered 9 people on the boat on that night. A further person died several days later from their injuries. And I remember thinking at that time, you know, like, how can you murder people? One of them was a sheikh in the 70s. One of the guys was called Furkan Dogan. He was a dual American Turkish citizen. He was training to be a doctor. And his dream was to cure blindness in Africa. He wanted to become an ophthalmic surgeon and go and remove the cataracts. This is the type of people who are on the boat. And these are the type of people who they murdered. So after that, we started up a wee group, an action group in Belfast. And then I met Dr. Saib Shaf, and he's the previous Palestinian representative to Ireland, His Excellency, the now retired ambassador. And as part of our chats and discussions and getting to know each other, he said to me, you know, we'd been raising money on behalf of the Al-Ouda Hospital in Gaza City. They actually have the James Connolly Surgical Unit. So money was raised in order to help facilitate and kind of, what would you call that, kit out this surgical suite. And like, I'd spent 15 years as an anaesthetic technician at the Ulster Hospital in Dundonald. So, I mean, everything just seemed to fit into place. But he said to me, Fra, if you want to show true solidarity with the people in Palestine, and I've taken that slightly further with anybody who's suffering under oppression or anyone who's suffering under like military occupation and stuff, then I ended up going on a convoy with 8 other people from the north. And myself and Tony Upton, we took a 13-seater wheelchair accessible minibus and we drove as part of Viva Palestina 5. It was one of George Galloway's siege busting convoy. So they had 4 in previously, and we were the 5th. So we went from Belfast to Dublin, Dublin to London, London over to Paris, Paris down to where do we go? Paris
Leon,
down
was
to
it?
Leon. Yeah, thank you very much.
I have read your book.
Well, I'm glad so many people haven't read it. And then over the Alps into Turin, and then down to Milan, and then down to Ancona, and then we went to Thessaloniki in Greece. From Greece, we went through to Turkey. We were met by IHH, that's the Turkish humanitarian NGO, the people responsible for the Mavi Marmara, the people who had comrades and colleagues murdered on the Mavi Marmara, and they brought us to the graveside of Furkan Dogan, which is why I know his story. Yeah. We met his family members and his brother. Then we went into Syria. We're in Damascus and then Latakia for 15 days while we waited for security coordination with the Egyptians.
Was that, I mean, that was an interesting bit in the book, how long you were stuck there. Was that
15 days, mate.
That had been, were you expecting to be there that long? I don't think you were you? Was only, you were expecting to be there briefly and then get let in? Or
yeah, how long's a piece of string at the end of the day? I mean, I went on an organised convoy. So my idea was, this is organised by Viva Palestina. I'm a member of the convoy. Like, you know, I'm just going to follow their lead. I'm not here to say, we'll have to do this, we should do that. I'm just going to go along. My mission, if you want to call it that, was to get into Gaza and take this 13-seater wheelchair-accessible minibus and donate it to the Al-Auda Hospital, the same hospital that would raise money for the surgical unit. And I just went along with whatever was happening. And yeah, it took 15 days. We thought we'd be there for 2 or 3 days. We thought this is just like a short hiatus. Someone says there must be security coordination between the Syrians and the Egyptians. What happens is the Egyptians have 3 internal security apparatus. So they had to get the names of the 350 people who were looking in. Then all 3 members of these 3 separate security apparatus operations had to agree. So some people were banned. Some people couldn't get in. George Galloway was already persona non grata from a previous convoy when he was attacked in Al-Arish. And he was told that he wouldn't be welcome back. But eventually, after something like 35 days after we left Belfast, we got to go to Al-Arish, the port in Egypt, then up to Rafah, to the border crossing, and then we get in for 3 days into Gaza. And I think we stayed in a Palestine hotel, which was specially opened for the people in the convoy because like there's no tourists getting into Gaza. And at that time, you know, it's not a matter of courage or bravery, it's a matter of doing the right thing. There was, in the back of people's minds, anything could happen on the road when you're driving, and anything could happen when you're in Gaza. Would you become a target because you're bringing aid, because you're breaking the siege? Or would the Israelis potentially go, we won't do anything while there's internationals here, bearing in mind this is 15 years ago. So nothing happened for the 3 days we were there. Then we came home, and then to finally answer your question, after that, we started up the charity at the end of 2010, start of 2011.
So what was it like being in Gaza at that time? Like what was... Yeah, so it's difficult to compare to now because you obviously you did try to get in recently, but obviously you weren't allowed to. So what's your perception of? You know, there's obviously an enormous change there. What was it like at the time?
At the time, to be fair, if we travelled all these weeks in order to get there, and then so when you arrived, they corralled all the vehicles. We were taken down to the hotel and stuff. So the first days kind of disappeared. It took about 6 or 7 hours just to get through the border security. It took everybody's passports. We sat there for hours. Then they let us through. But we had like a hero's welcome. We're not heroes, but that's how we were greeted. And I remember one guy telling me, if you'd have come in here without a shirt on your back, in your bare feet, all we wanted was to know that we're not alone. And that's the real strength in the Madeleine, the boat that's going, the Handala that's going at the minute. It's to let the Palestinians know that although we can't physically stop the genocide, we can't stop the siege, they're not alone, because you'll see them on television, you'll see them being interviewed, you'll see them on social media. Why has the world forgotten us? The world governments in the West have not only forgotten them, but they're totally complicit in the genocide and the ethnic cleansing. America's supplying all the bombs. Britain's supplying the overflights from Cyprus. The the Germans are still supplying like submarines, cruise missiles, whatever it happens to be. But it's just to let them know that they're not forgotten. And you hear this phrase that people sometimes say at the protests: "We see you, we hear you." I think that's very important. So that was the reason behind trying to break the siege, to bring that solidarity to the people there. But like, we were kind of in the hotel, and then we were able to meet. We met people maybe connected to the PFLP who were in Gaza, so they welcomed us to have a talk about the journey, what happened. So like 3 days is absolutely no time in Gaza. And then the people who were organising our itinerary brought us around schools that still had the bullet holes, that were like close to occupied Palestine, and the schools hadn't been kind of reopened. So we were hearing testimony for people. We were going to conferences where we would hear the history of what was happening, and we would explain why we were there. So like 3 days is absolutely no time, but my overarching memory is one of being welcomed. I've never heard a Palestinian, hand on heart, talk about revenge, talk about, doing anything to the Israelis the way the Israelis and the Zionists are doing stuff to them. I've never heard anything remotely like that. So I've always been very impressed and respectful of their dignity and their charity towards other people, and the fact that they just want to live in dignity and in peace. They want the right of return enshrined under UN Resolution 194, that they can go back to their homes, go back to their farms, live in peace with the Zionists in one state. Seems to be the only solution going forward. That's all I've ever heard them ask for. And that type of dignity, when you consider what they've been through, without them calling, they might call for resistance, which is legal under international law against an illegal occupation. But honestly, for people that have suffered so much, that were refugees in 48 and refugees again in 67, and I don't know, 60 or 70% of the people in Gaza are refugees from them, intergenerational refugees who literally just want peace. But in my opinion, it's impossible to have peace. When Israel talks about peace, they talk about every piece of Palestine, every piece of the West Bank, every piece of Gaza. So Palestinians want peace, they want security, they want equality, they want their sovereign rights. And Israel and the Zionists just want to end their Palestinian question in this, what appears to be the final solution we're witnessing right in front of our eyes, in real time, as a genocide, starvation as a weapon of war and coercion, murdering something like over 800 people going to the food stations, and like thousands of others injured. And you're hearing about these kids. I watched something yesterday, a doctor saying 12, 15 and 17-year-olds being brought in with the gunshot wounds and the sniper wounds those had survived, as just the killing fields basically in Gaza.
Yeah, no, it's horrendous. Obviously, we have proof that that's all deliberate. It's, doctors and surgeons coming back, reporting sniper wounds to children's heads, sniper wounds to children's bodies. So it's obviously aimed shots. It's not just people caught up in, other gunfire between Israeli soldiers and Hamas. It's obviously deliberately targeted, and the same with the food distribution sites. We've heard that Israeli soldiers are instructed by their commanders to shoot at innocent people, even with tank fire and mortars, as a way of communicating to them. Like, we don't, like, the place isn't open, so instead of announcing on a loudhailer, they'll just gun them all down or blow them all up. And that's clearly what's been happening. But just go back to your point about that lack of feeling of vengeance among Palestinians. I've always been struck by that. I've always noticed that Palestinians I've heard seem to be remarkably devoid of hate and vengefulness. And when we spoke before, you compared it to attitudes here as well, that people here who've suffered under British occupation generally tend to be fairly free of that as well. Do you think that response is just the knowledge of what it's like to be oppressed and feeling like you don't want anyone else to suffer on the same kind of oppression, and therefore that's your mentality?
It's a very interesting question, because at the start of that I was going to say I think it's the strength of the faith of Islam that people aren't looking revenge.
Yeah.
Honestly, I mean, I've never, ever heard him say it. But I was recently listening to some stuff from Malcolm X.
Yeah.
So the oppressed black minority, and that makes up 15% of the American population. You know, he was kind of saying that the whites in America are frightened to give up power because once the shoe's on the other foot, they think the black people will do to the whites what the white people did to the black, which is what the loyalist unionist community here thinks the Catholic Irish community will do to them. Yes. And it's exactly what the white Africana apartheid people in South Africa think.
And Israel,
you know,
too, yeah.
So yeah, well, if you view the Israelis as a European colonial imperialist footprint within the Levant, I mean, they've all come from, the majority of them's come from Eastern Europe. Like 80%, I watched something again today, 80% of all the Palestinians, their DNA can be traced back something like 14,000 years to the original Canaanites and people who inhabited that land like long before the Romans and long before like 7,000 years before Christ and stuff. Their DNA makes them the indigenous population. But all these people who claim to have an allegiance and affinity to Israel and the Holy Land, very few of them, they've all got Eastern European DNA. So they're not Semite, they're not from the region. I mean, they converted, their parents, grandparents, whatever it happened to be, converted to Judaism. And again, something to watch, I already knew part of this. I mean, the Balfour Agreement from like 1917 that helped sow the seeds for the destruction and the occupation of Palestine, they'd originally talked about there was Argentina as a possible place for this Jewish...
There are all kinds of places they're considering, were Uganda and Argentina.
100%.
Yeah.
Uganda, they talked about Argentina, Madagascar. I mean, there's a list, somebody read it the other day. It is amazing how many places are on it. And then eventually, because the British could make it work in Palestine, then that was agreed to be the place. And then they've used the biblical connections in order to go there. So, like, what you were saying is correct. People who have lived under oppression, they only ever seek equality. They only ever seek justice. They only ever seek to have their day in the sun and to be treated the same as everybody else under the Constitution. So that seems to be almost the indigenous reaction to colonial oppression, is just to say, please end the oppression. Please treat us as you treat everybody else in civil society, and let's all get along together. But you need to end the discrimination. You need to end the oppression. You need to end the apartheid laws, whatever it happen to be, the double standards, the discrimination. And we've witnessed that here. We now have like a level of peace through the Good Friday Agreement. A lack of violence doesn't necessarily mean peace. It just means a lack of violence, but no one's trying to stop Protestants from voting, stop Protestant unionists from getting houses or discriminate against them in employment, which is what the indigenous people here suffered long before the partition of Ireland in 1921.
Yeah. Just to go back to the March to Gaza, the more recent one then, which you were on, along with one or two people from BDS, Mara from BDS, another, I think it was about 20 activists from Belfast went in the end. Wasn't
I think so. We're about 48 people from Ireland in total, yeah.
Aye. So it was a good contingent again. So what was that trip like? I mean, how did that... there's obviously a lot of difficulties this time, again, with Egyptian authorities as part of it. So what was that like, and do you think it was worthwhile in the end?
Yeah, it definitely wasn't a failure. But again, if I put things in context just for 1 second, I mean, after we started the charity then,
Aye.
when we were in Gaza in 2010, the people who were doing the interpreting from Arabic to English, two of the guys worked in the Al-Amal orphanage in Gaza City. So we got to know them. One of them's called Musa. He's now in Belgium. He's some story to tell of how he fled as a refugee, had a gun put to his head and stuff in Greece. By the traffickers who wanted, even though they'd paid, they wanted more money. They wanted like every penny that they had on them and stuff. Kind of kidnapped them. It was a bit crazy. But what we done was in 2011 we raised £10,000 for the Alamal orphanage where they worked for a solar panel project. Then we did 3 scholarships in the Islamic University in Gaza, one in midwifery, one in law, and one in child psychology. Took us up to like 2015. In between, I'd been to the Viva Palestina summer school in Beirut in 2011. I'd been 14 days with the East Jerusalem YMCA on an orientation tour of the West Bank. 2014, I went on a second convoy, which was Bradford to Gaza, another George Galloway-inspired convoy. We only got as far as Aqaba in Jordan that time. 15 days in Aqaba, and we had to give the journey up and donate the vans and the aid we had to the Hashemite charities in Amman, the capital in Jordan. Then it was a bit of a hiatus for Palestine Aid. You can't just keep going around the same people and holding the same functions trying to raise money. And then in 2021, whenever there was another mowing the lawn operation, we still had a couple of grand in the bank account, which was meant to go towards a scholarship, but never raised enough money. So then we started sending money digitally to Gaza. In order, at the time, we had kids going to the beach, we had sports days, we get meat parcels for people breaking their fast at the end of the Eid festivals. We were buying kids coats, winter shoes, toys, supporting schools for special needs. So it was fantastic, the work that was being done. And then when this all kicked off in October 2023, I was following what it said on TV. Like, there's nothing getting in, there's no food, the place is being destroyed. But on March 24, we were able to start get money back in, and then we were able to realise and source 250,000 meals between March 24 and May 25. Now, there's nothing getting in, no commercial supplies. Once commercial supplies start getting in, then we can buy food again. So we helped about 17,000 displaced families with a food parcel for 1 week. And I thank the donors for that. It's not my money at the end of the day, you know. It's the people who raise money on our behalf. In fact, Lurgan IPSC recently donated like 11 grand to our food aid programme. So as soon as the money's in the bank account, as soon as the food supplies are commercially available.
And maybe just talk a bit about your model then, so people are clear. Like, it's to give money directly to volunteers on the ground.
100%. We've always done that. I was involved in things before where people like doing toy drives, collecting medical aid, collecting clothing and stuff to send to Palestine. I'm not decrying people's goodwill and stuff, but I mean, you get all this stuff, then you hire a container. I don't know what that costs. Then you put it on a boat. I don't know what that costs. Then you send it to Al Arish in Egypt, and then somebody breaks into it in the warehouse, and then half the stuff's basically stolen. So our model has always been, we're unpaid volunteers, and Dr. Shath is our patron, and I'm the director, Palestine Aid. We're unpaid volunteers. We have a group of unpaid volunteers on the ground in Gaza. So we pledge that 100% of all the donations coming through go to Gaza, because we pay something like £17 a month in bank accounts, and then we pay like £35 for every international transfer. So it's transferred into dollars, and then it's transferred over. So you're talking, I don't know what that is, like £200 and £300 a year. I mean, we can
see it on the Charity Commission accounts, can't they? All that.
It's all sitting there. Yeah. We have a brilliant accountant, Fiona Johnson. Fiona keeps us right, and she sends in the accounts. So that's the model. Well before October 23, we were not just supporting people on the ground in Gaza, which was mainly kids and families. We were supporting the local economy. I mean, if we bought 500 or 1,000 coats, we were getting coats for like $6 each. Like a wee snorkel the kids would wear here in the winter. $6. You can't buy them here for less than a tenner, and then you're going to have to somehow transport them all the way over. Cheaper to buy them locally. And when our volunteers, God love them, at that time didn't buy stuff, they would go in and say, because we started off sending like $1,000, right? So say they would go in, call it $5 for a wee winter coat. So you're getting 200 coats. And they would go in and they would say, there's $1,000. We want 200 coats for 4 to 6 year olds, 6 to 8 year olds, 9 to 11 year olds, whatever it happened to be. And the guys in the shop or the commercial suppliers, they'd say, look, you know, we appreciate and respect what you're doing. There's another 30 tops for free.
Right.
You know, so everyone was helping everyone within that community. So you were supporting the local community and stuff. But I mean, obviously everything's destroyed. The place is just, you may as well be on the moon now, you know, for all the water and food that's on the moon. You know, that's kind of being replicated by what's happening in Gaza. So we're all volunteers. We guarantee that every money we get goes to Gaza. And we think it's about £115,000 to supply those 250,000 meals. So we normally send over now $7 or $7,000 at a time, which is about 5,800 quid. And we take our direction from the people on the ground. So when they say to us, we can get stuff, can you send us money? That's what we're doing. There's no point us sending money if they can't buy anything.
So right now, when there's nothing getting in, nothing for people to buy, it's just a waiting game, is it? Basically waiting for the
well, what we're really waiting
again?
for is this so-called ceasefire. I mean, the Israelis now, they use violence and murder as political leverage. Every time you get close to negotiations around a potential ceasefire, they just start murdering people at will, trying to put political pressure on Hamas to make concessions in the negotiations through a body count of women and children on the ground in Gaza. And if people begin to see that that's how this Zionist rogue regime works, you know, they've dehumanized the Palestinians. They invoke that Amalek to kill every man, woman, child, suckling beast. It's really a scorched earth policy that you would have seen in the Second World War. Leave nothing and no one alive. I mean, if you look at it in those terms and you realise that that's what the agenda, everything makes sense. Bombing hospitals makes sense. Bombing schools makes sense. Bombing sewage treatment works. Bombing water purification things. Poisoning wells. And then this whole psychological war. You've heard now that they've told Gazans that they can't get into the water on the beach. People, it's 91 degrees Fahrenheit. I don't know what that is in Celsius, right? They can't even get into the water to cool off. The kids can't even get in for a swim and to play, to take their mind off what's happening. It's like you stay on the beach, you stay in the tents, you have to worry every second of every minute of every hour of every day that you, your family members, your cousins, your community, your neighbours could be eviscerated at any point. People going to get food. I think it was 74 people yesterday murdered simply going to get food. You know, so for 74 murdered, there's probably, I don't know, 200, 300, 400 people injured. So there's a psychological war along with the physical war upon the people that they cannot relax. There's no security, there's no safety, and you can't even get into the water just even to bathe yourself. I mean, if there's no clean water, no sanitation, you know, you can take the kids down to the beach, let them get into the water, let them kind of have a bit of hygiene. Nothing. They've said they're going to shoot them. Go into the water, we'll shoot you.
Yeah. Well, the whole project is just to make life basically impossible for people, isn't it?
Psychological warfare.
That's
100%.
the idea of it. Yeah. You know, how much day-to-day work is there in running the charity? Is it something that sort of runs itself once it's going, or I mean, how much time do you put into that?
I'm ashamed to say that I could do so much more than I actually do. I should be out highlighting the charity. I should be out. I see other people doing like pub quizzes and fundraisers. But in my own defence, we have this vehicle. We have this charity. We have this mechanism. We have this opportunity for people on the ground to be able to help out. So to answer your question and put it in a context, what I'm going to say is a lot of people go marching, right? Now, I've been involved in this for 15 years. The one thing I'll say about marching, please God, it'll change this time. I'm not sure it will. People are called out onto the streets to march. They're told they're marching for a ceasefire. And what happens previously is when the ceasefire is brought in, people then celebrate, we got the ceasefire, job done. That is not the end of the support by the support groups, but that's the end of kind of the physical participation of civil society in marching and calling for ceasefires. Now, people can go to a march. There's a national demonstration in Dublin on Saturday. People who go to that march, some people are going to have a beer afterwards. Some people are going to have coffee. Some people are going to have something to eat. Some people will go shopping. People feel that they're making a difference, and on one level they are. But not one march in Ireland or anywhere in the world has saved one life in Gaza, in my opinion, or the West Bank for that matter. So I say this, people won't agree with this, but I'm going to say it anyway. You know, if some pro-Palestinian groups didn't exist, I'd almost say the state would create them. Because you bring people out into the street, so it becomes a safety valve. And I'm not knocking anybody, I'm just speaking my opinion here. You bring people out onto the streets, it acts as a safety valve. People feel that we must do something, we must do something, we must stop the carnage, we must stop the genocide. So you march people from A to B, and then you let people feel that they wave the flag. I've listened to some speeches which disgust me by some politicians who are just purely there to get votes for their political agenda, and it's not really about Palestine. They may support the Palestinians in the same manner that I do, but if they're trying to get votes by standing on a platform as a political party or a political representative, I have absolutely no respect for them whatsoever. So my past experience in 15 years has been that once the bombs stop, then the demonstrations dissipate like snow from a ditch on a spring afternoon. So all these people come out, you raise all this energy, and I'm not necessarily suggesting there's any other way to do this, do you know what I mean? But people come out and march, people call for ceasefire, then they get the ceasefire, then it's kind of all over till the next time. I think this might be different because this is global. You've seen like 1 million people in Yemen, in Sana'a, the capital. You've seen like 500,000 people in London. You've seen hundreds of thousands in Paris, hundreds of thousands in Berlin. Germany, of all countries, you know, responsible for the Holocaust, is complicit in another Holocaust under their watch. And the police there and in Austria, they're horrific when it comes to you take out a Palestine flag, the buttons come out, you know. So I think it's important that people march, so I'm not knocking it. It's a first step for a lot of people, including me. My first step in activism was with the hunger strikes, like in 81 and stuff. But
it's a conduit to other things. I suppose about the march, you're right, in itself. Doors, it doesn't change anything in itself. Direct action itself doesn't change anything in itself. Charity, it's all of the above. I suppose in defensive marches, you would say it's potentially a conduit to other things. Like it's a means for people to see there's like-minded people there. It's a means for people to get things off their chest. It's potentially a means for activists to network. Potentially a means into other actions from that, I suppose. Those would be the potential benefits of marches. But I take your point that marches in themselves are insufficient to change anything. It's part of a network of things that all have to come together.
Yeah, and I accept your point fully. No, 100%. I don't disagree with it. I'm just saying marching in itself, it's obviously not enough. But it does open doorways. It brings people along the route to activism. So, I mean, I'm at this 15 years now. And that's where I started, going down to the City Hall to have a protest in and around what happened and what was happening on the Mavi Marmara on the day it was actually hijacked in international waters. But you'd mentioned there just about the charity and stuff. So I could do so much more. I'll put my hands up. But the vehicle's there, and the fact that people have donated £115,000 to date, we have more money in the bank account. We're always asking people to support what we're doing because, you know, there's a place for the marches. I'm not knocking that. There's a place for direct action. I'm not knocking that either. But there are nuances in between. And I'll just say in my defence, I mean, we were having kids to the beaches. We got solar panels for the Al Amal orphanage, which was destroyed in 2021. We had 3 scholarships at the Islamic University in Gaza, which was destroyed in 2023, 2024. You know, we've fed 15, 16, 17,000 displaced families, if only for a week per family. But that's nearly, what would that be? That'd be nearly 100,000 people. Because we count like 6 people in a family, so 17,000, that's 102,000 people, if I've got that correct. So I'm just proud that, you know, we set it up, we've done what we've done over the years, and then when people were looking to do something in support. Now, there's millions being raised for medical aid for Palestine, and yet they've got a CEO, they've got offices, they've got overheads, they've got fundraisers. I would imagine the first $1 million plus just goes for the wages and the running of that facility. I don't know if they're sourcing food on the ground in Gaza. I don't know if they've helped feed 100,000 people for a week, but we have. So I would encourage people to maybe think about Palestine Aid. Now, we're registered with the Northern Ireland Charity Commission as Palestine Aid. We brand ourselves as Palestine Aid Ireland because there's Palestine Aid in London, there's Palestine Aid in Philadelphia, there's Palestine Aid in Europe. So we just wanted to kind of take ourselves out of this to make ourselves identifiable.
Yeah.
But we are Palestine Aid. We're branded as Palestine Aid Ireland.
Is that actually is that owned by anyone, the Palestine Aid name, or can anyone just take that and add their own country's name to it? I've always wondered. Is there any connection to like a broader overarching Palestine Aid charity?
Well, I know there's a Palestine Aid in London.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a charity, but we are a charity. We're a registered charity, right? I always thought that potentially we should have trademarked Palestine Aid, but it doesn't bother me, like, you know.
Aye.
I mean, the kind of what you do is in the name, Palestine Aid. You know, it's a very, very, very simple concept, you know, and people thankfully have got behind us. We've had the IPSC in Lurgan, we've had people down in Strabane. We've had, who else is there? Maura McNally from BDS give us a very sizable contribution there recently, over like £2,000 that she helped fundraise. So there's been a lot of people have helped out. Some small fundraisers, some people, we have monthly donors, 20, 30, 40, 50 quid a month. That's all coming in. That builds up over a series of months, while other people are out doing. There was Tomley's Bar in the Moy, they got us £4,000 over one weekend. Fabulous work. Like, they just charge people like a tenner going in for some of the events, and then they had the raffles and stuff on the night. All young people. I was down for one of the nights, and I was just throwing tenners and £20 notes into the bucket. So the generosity of young people, I was fairly moved by that. You know, people you'd think are just out for a good night out, young boys, young girls, out to meet each other in a social kind of context, and they're throwing money at you.
It's amazing how much can be raised. Like, I was down with a comrade of mine doing a talk in Ballycastle not too long ago, and just for coffee morning down there, and just in the space of like an hour, it was just like a small room in Ballycastle, small town, a few tray bakes out, and they'd raised £2,000 in just that one morning. And like you say, the bucket was just full of 10s and 20s. So for anyone thinking of raising money for Palestine Aid, or for Palestine generally, it's a pretty easy thing to do in Ireland anyway. People are always willing to give money. I'm sure that's your experience.
Yeah. People are more emotionally engaged now about what's happening than ever.
Yeah.
I mean, I have a partner, she's 4 kids, and she now has 4 grandchildren. She's just had 5 grandchildren. Her daughter-in-law just had a wee baby on her just a few days ago on the 11th of July. Like, when I see the pictures of what's happening, when I see the kids, when I see them injured, God forbid, headless, I see young boys, young girls, like, I see them and I go, God, like, she's just like your Amy, and she's just like your Caitlin, and he's just like Jack. And, you know, anybody who's not moved in seeing these things. But you mentioned about the March to Gaza then.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
in Egypt.
Around that,
I have a good memory as well. Like, feels like half an hour ago. But yeah, they were expected to have 3,000 internationals arrive in Cairo. The idea was that people would arrive before or on the 12th of July, 12th of June. Then on the 13th of June, would jump on buses and go down to Al Arish, and then walk from Al Arish to the Rafah border crossing over 2 days. Get there on the 15th of June. I know there was the Samud convoy that was coming from, I think it was Tunisia, and it had Moroccans and Algerians and Tunisians, and I think it was meant to arrive via Libya at the same time. So you were going to have 3,000 people walking from Al Arish to Rafah, and 7,000 people arriving on this convoy filled with aid. And the idea was, we weren't trying to get into Gaza. No one's a martyr here. No one's looking to get injured.
It's impossible to get in
or murdered. We were down to challenge the refusal of this rogue Zionist fascist state to allow in the medical aid and the food. So we were going to be standing there like going, open a border, open a border, open a border. Words to that effect. Again, Palestinian people watch stuff online. For those who can still connect to the internet, they'd be able to see us at the other side of the border. Just again, but let them know that they're not alone and that people do care. But what happened was, you know, speaking to the people who were involved in this, some of the organisers, they contacted the kind of national embassies in Cairo. So the Irish coordinators would contact the Irish embassy in Cairo, the French, the Italians, the Americans, the Greeks, the Dutch, the Spanish, okay? And then they would also supply the names of the people who were going, like how many people, here's all their details. And I think there was an assumption made that by informing the embassy that we were going to arrive, that the embassy would somehow enter into negotiations with the government to facilitate this.
There was no definite arrangement in advance. It was just assumed that they would do that.
This appears to be the case. Yeah. People seem to have taken at face value. The embassy said, well, we don't see an issue with this. We don't think it'll be a problem. I'm not knocking the organisers. I'm just saying if there was no open dialogue between the kind of global organisers and the Egyptian state, of which we were going to be guests, of which 3,000 people suddenly flying into Cairo, jumping on buses and going down to what's a closed military zone, obviously with hindsight could prove a bit of an issue. So I could be wrong, but I believe there was no dialogue on that level.
Even if there had been, like this is Saib's position when he was on doing the podcast, he felt there wasn't enough coordination with Egyptian authorities. But do you think even if there had been, they would have acted any differently? Do you think they would have been granted you permission to get up to Rafah?
Well, we'll never know.
Never know.
I just know in 2014 they didn't let our convoy through, in 2014.
And even gave you hassle in 2010 in some ways, didn't they? So,
but if they'd said, if there'd been some form of coordinated contact, and the Egyptians said, guys, don't waste your time coming over. It's a closed military zone. We're not going to let you down. In fact, if you try and get down, you're liable to be arrested and deported. The whole thing could have finished there. No, I don't think it would have. I think the people who went with the moral imperative that they wanted to try and get to Rafah, that they wanted to try and make a difference. So if we circumvent all this and just go down to what happened then. So I arrived with Maura from BDS. Yeah. We arrived on the 11th. Now, my passport, because for me, Palestine is one issue. It's an anti-colonial, anti-imperialist, and the more you look into it, an anti-capitalist struggle. But I see that in Cuba, see it in Venezuela, see it in Yemen, I see it with the Axis of Resistance, I see it in the Donbass. So, like, I've been in loads and loads and loads of places through my activism. And one of those places was Iraq last year. So I had a stamp in my passport from Iraq. And when I went through the security, through the passport control, the girl who took my passport looked at it, put it over her shoulder, the girl behind her, who looked at it, gave it back there. She got up and walked out of the booth and gave the old, come with me. So I was walking across the concourse and I was going, is everything all right? Is my passport in order? Is there something wrong? But she took me into a wee room and she showed this particular passport stamp to one of the security officers and he just waved her away. And I got through, but when I came through the carousel for baggage reclaim, I saw these guys in their 40s and 50s with the suits stopping people coming through. And I'm thinking, well, we were worried that we mightn't even get in through Cairo. So it gives you the level of even people going on this. We're worried, like, never mind getting to Rafah, like, we're even going to get through security at Cairo because we're expecting people to arrive. But so I got stopped. Guy said to me, where are you from? And I said, Ireland. And he just waved me on. I thought, happy days. We got to the hotel that night, myself and Maura, because we went through independently. We pretended we didn't know each other. She went through one passport control. I went through another. But we stayed in the Golden Palace Hotel downtown Cairo. And then, so we were all online, but we're all in small groups. And like the Irish group had one particular kind of method for contacting each other. And we started hearing that they'd stopped hundreds of people coming in on the 12th and they'd returned them, return the sender. Like they got off the plane and put on the next plane leaving Cairo. Mainly French and mainly Algerians because I believe there's some issue between the Algerians and the Egyptians when it comes to Palestine and stuff. So once we'd heard hundreds of people had been deported, then we're in the position of, right, well, we were meant to get buses the following day to take us down to Al Arish. You couldn't possibly get on a bus, like 10 coaches for 600 people, 50 coaches for 3,000 people, because it's just stop coaches as soon as you go down the road. So I'll not go into anything else. I'll just say that people were then going to get taxis and Ubers in order to make their way down to Alaris. Some people were followed from their hotels. Some of the taxi drivers were interviewed as they were taking the people, including our taxi driver. So what happened was we get into the taxi. The security people come over and said to the taxi driver, "Where are you going?" And he told them, and they waved us on and let us go. So it's like an hour and 40 minutes down to Alaris. And bearing in mind, there's no other way for us to go other than getting an Uber or getting a taxi. And we can't be responsible for security people suddenly popping up, stopping the taxi driver, asking whether they're taking you. Because like loads of people were followed from loads of the hotels. People were actually arrested in some of the hotels. I believe a Swedish delegation were walking about the foyer waving their Palestine flags. Somebody got on the phone the next minute, off they went. We got a handbook, a do and don't. And one of the don'ts was don't wear anything Palestinian. Don't bring anything that would identify you in your luggage. Don't be talking about why you're here. In reception or in the breakfast areas of the hotel, you're a tourist. Keep it all under the radar.
Is that just because they don't want anything like? I mean, I know a lot of countries in West Asia have done similar things. They've just tried to keep a lid on Palestinian protest entirely. I think it's the same kind of thing in Egypt. They just see any kind of Palestinian mobilization as potentially a spur for mobilization against the government, and that's why they're clamping down on it. Is that where it's coming from?
I've seen more Palestine flags in Ardoin than I saw in Cairo of 28 million people. That's because Sisi's a dictator. He's in the back pocket of both the Zionists and the American administration. I believe they put him in power. You had Morsi, the democratically elected leader. I'm not a fan of the Muslim Brotherhood, but he's democratically elected. I accept it. He was put in jail under the coup. About 4 days after the coup, Sisi came out and said, why won't the Americans come out publicly and endorse me? As soon as I heard that, I thought, well, I've obviously encouraged him to go for this. They put him in there and he's calling them out. Why won't you publicly endorse me? A couple of days later, the State Department said we de facto recognise that there's been a change of administration in Egypt. So the very fact that we weren't to bring anything about Palestine, the very fact that we were like to ignore each other in the arrival area in Cairo explains a lot about, that 3,000 people turning up in Cairo wasn't going to be appreciated by the Egyptian authorities. So cut a long story short, we're bombing down the main highways to Ismailia. It's an hour and 40 minutes from Cairo. After an hour, you go through, in Egypt, you get this in a lot of places in the Middle East because of the security concerns. You go through one governorate to the next. So it's like going from Dublin to Wicklow or Donegal to Derry. There'll be a checkpoint, just checking people coming through, where they're going, why they're going there. So we got through the first military checkpoint. We were stopped at the second. They took me and Moira and 2 other people out of the car, took our passports. Now, you learn something new every day. We shouldn't have handed the passport over. But, you've got a military officer going passport.
What would you have done? I mean, if you hadn't, they would have stopped you regardless, surely.
Oh, well, no, we're being detained, basically. Don't get me wrong.
We couldn't have won either way.
But you can show it to them. It's the same. See, when you come through Belfast International Airport and they stop you and they take your passport off you, you can actually physically hold your passport up. That's me. That's my passport. This is, it actually says, I think, somewhere in a passport, you should never hand your passport because you're giving away not your citizenship, you're giving away your power. As soon as somebody else has your passport, like, what are you going to do? You can't do anything till you get it back. You can literally open it and say, that's me there, and refuse to hand it over.
A really useful thing to have them do in Don't Book, I suppose. What to do.
Well, some people didn't hand them over in Ismailia because I met them. I was talking. She said, we've got our passports in our pocket. And I'm fairly convinced that, that where we were, at one stage, I saw a couple of people, because loads of people had told us to come with rucksacks, told us to come with sleeping blankets because we're going to be out in the desert. So it's a bit of a guess why we're here, But I saw some people walking down past the security checkpoint, just literally going for a walk and then sitting about 200 metres down the road, waiting for cars that were coming through the checkpoint, or buses going further on down the road. And I didn't see them do it, but I'm really convinced that, someone were putting a thumb out to say, get us down the road here. Because I I smoke from a sins, right? So I thought, I'll have a wee cigarette. I'll dander down here and see what's happening. And I couldn't go anywhere because I had my passport. Even if I'd wanted to like do a runner, I couldn't go anywhere. Although you could have, and you could have just said you lost your passport. You know what I mean? If you get stopped anywhere. But anyway, I went down, and like 1 minute, there's a fella and a girl sitting there. You go down, you have a wee cigarette, you're watching what's happening. You go back up, you look down 10 minutes later, they're gone. And like, I didn't walk all the way down there to sit down at the side of the road, to walk all the way back up again without me seeing them because of, you know, the visual kind of openness.
Yeah.
But so I reckon the stops somewhere around 600 people at our checkpoint. And there were supposed to be 300 people at the first checkpoint who got stopped. So that's nearly 1,000 people in total. So I had our passports, we're out in the blazing sun. People are chatting to each other. And then you hear, you know, well, there's 300 Americans there, you know, on the international delegation. There's like 400 from Greece, people from Spain and all. And you're thinking, wow, fabulous. And we all think the same. We all come from the same kind of political spectrum. So after about 6 hours, we get stopped at 3 o'clock. About 9 o'clock, they handed back our passports. And then everybody knew what was coming, right? You know, they're not stopping you there without, you know, putting you on the buses. And at that stage, I thought, that's game over. Like, they're going to put us. They've already sent hundreds of people back who arrived on the 12th from the airport and deported them, arrested people in the hotels and deported them. Now there's like 600 of us here, all as part of this international delegation. They're going to put us on buses. We're all going up to Cairo Airport. We'll be there for 24, 36 hours. We'll put on planes, sent home. So I'm with Maura, and there's a collective decision made that no one will voluntarily get on. Now, when I say buses, they're taxi buses. They sit about 12 people. And that's the mode of transport you have between the towns. So there were 600 of us. So we got like kind of kettled by the rat police, full rat gear. So they're at our sides and at our back. So we're flanked in like a C formation. The idea is you can't go back, you can't go forward, or sorry, you can't go to either side. And, you know, then all of a sudden these people appear in front of you. Some of them are obviously undercover, police, security, internal security. Some of them are people who have like, they're not keffiyehs, but they've got like big head covers on. We were told that there were potentially Bedouins, that there were mercenaries that were paid like $100 to come up whenever they're needed and basically act as a tough arm of the law. So a collective decision not to voluntarily get on the bus. Everybody would sit down. I was standing, at this stage I'm standing up with a phone, and Maura's singing O Shade of Ahawalya. Right. And there was about 14 of the Irish there. I don't know where everybody else was at this stage, but we were at the second checkpoint. So she's singing that. Then we started singing, there was a chorus of We're on the One Road. And then when we were sitting down, we started singing that iconic civil rights we should overcome. But we're putting in, you know, Palestine will be free. So we're singing that there. Then these guys turned up, they had like liter bottles half filled with water. And they were like using them as batons to hit people. They were throwing them at people's faces in the crowd. They were throwing water and stuff over people.
Some of these are elderly people, like Myra, who you're talking about, is in her 70s, and she got hit by a water bottle, didn't she? Yeah.
Quite a, I think she was hitting the side of the head, like, you know. And especially, I don't mean if you're not looking, but if you're talking to someone or you're watching somebody else out of the corner of your eye, I mean, you don't see anything coming towards you. And at one stage, you had like 8 ambulances. So you had the thugs, right? We call them the thugs. Then you had the security personnel, the internal security. Then you had the police and full rat gear. Then behind them, you had the army and reserve. And then you had like 8 ambulances. And at one stage, when we were sitting on the grass, they brought out like 6 gurneys. I have all the photographs in the video. They brought out like 6 gurneys with the paramedics behind them. The obvious implication is if you aren't get on the buses with another form of transport, they take you away from here.
You're going to like the state you get onto it.
Yeah, so they're just kind of saying, look, you can come voluntarily or you can go in the ambulance. You know, they didn't have to state it. Like,
if you did end up in ambulances, like we had ones who went over from Belfast who were kept in the sort of the midday heat and passed out.
I know there was somebody, I know Kira, I think, had suffered from sunstroke.
Another woman too. I don't know if they want us to mention their names, but I mean they
sure
they went.
It's only a first name.
Yeah, that's doesn't matter. Yeah, we can edit that out if necessary. But it's they got taken to a hospital. Well, didn't they? 'Cause, they said the hospital was awful as well. So it was pretty grim conditions all around. From like, I mean, in terms of like the abuse you got from the ones in plain clothes, do you think that was just a way of avoiding the uncomfortable side for the authorities of having like people in uniforms doing it? So they just
That's what we were led to believe, that someone could say this is nothing about the security services. These Bedouins don't want these people coming halfway around the world and causing trouble in their kind of backyard. But I mean, these guys have been employed before, so like everyone knows the reality, regardless of what they say. But you know, the way I look at it is the violence they offered. Now, I think I was told to work with kid gloves. Now, people were hurt. You know what I mean? We did see it happen. And people might disagree with me. It's hard to kid gloves when you're attacking people.
Yeah.
You know, but they offered people a chance to leave, and then they would like grab you by the arm and pull you forward. So if you left voluntarily, well, there was no violence after that. You just walked through the police lines, you got into the car park, they put you on the minibus, they sent you off on your way. So the more people refused, then that's when they started to become more violent. Well, if you're not going to move, we're going to move you. So everything's like kind of proportional in a way. If you had just put your hands up and walked out, you wouldn't have ended up getting assaulted. But the people who have the moral side, the right side, are the people who sat down and said, well, you know, we're here to go to Rafah. We're not here to voluntarily comply with you. There's just two sides. The Egyptian government said, you're not going down there. It's a closed military zone. You're stopped at the checkpoint. We want you to get in the buses. You want you to go back to Cairo. If you don't get on the buses, we're physically going to put you on the buses. I mean, that's where they're coming from. That people are saying, we're humanitarians. We're concerned about ending the genocide in Gaza. We're concerned about getting the aid in. We don't consent to you telling us that we can't go to El Arish. So it's a matter of balance and perspective. So at one stage, there was a guy who had a whip. He was like, he whipped somebody like not far from me. And I thought, Jesus, this isn't good. And then an older man came and pushed him away. Now, I still can't decide if it's good cop, bad cop. It's like he's going to go, he's looking to hurt people. He's a thug. Now, the question is, was he allowed to do that to frighten people? And if you don't comply, you're going to get whipped.
so you have two options. Yeah.
It's a proper whip. I mean, you could lose an eye, so don't get me wrong. I mean, there was some serious violence offered to the people who were saying we're not voluntarily getting on the buses. So I saw that and I thought, oh, this isn't good. Like, this is really going to kick off here. But somebody else pushed him back. In the end, so they broke people up into two groups, two encirclements. And then, so they moved in from the front and got people away. So at one stage, we're down to about 12 people. So there's me and Maura and 10 other people. Might have been actually less than that, might have been 10 of us. There were two gentlemen in their 40s beside us, Arabic-speaking gentlemen, and they were telling us what was happening, as in these guys were coming up, whatever they were saying. And one of them spoke perfect English. He looked at me and he looked at Maura and he looked us in the eyes. And he says, you know, do you want to go? I think what he meant was, it's okay to go. You know, if you want to go, go, is exactly what he said. And we looked him back in the eyes and we said, no, we're staying. And so he did this on about 3 different occasions. And then finally, you know, he says to us, right, he says, these guys are now saying that, like, we've tried our best. We've done everything we can to encourage you to leave, get on the buses. If you're not going to go, we're not going to have anything more to do with this. We're calling in the army, right? Now, this guy had been remonstrating with these undercover cops or whatever for like the half an hour that we'd been there. And he says, you don't want to be here when the army comes in. We've been through this.
Right.
And then he says to me, and Maura, so we're going. And I'd advise you to do the same. And I looked at Maura and I said, look, I mean, you guys have been here as long as we have and they've been trying to fight them off and stuff. You know, if they're saying it's time to go, I'm guessing it's time to go. So what happened was we were down to the last couple of people. And I think Maura was the last woman there among those 12 people.
I'm surprised.
No surprise.
No more, yeah.
No surprise with Maura. And she wanted to be the last person to leave because I was with her. I was the second last person to leave. So we left together and we walked through this police cordon. And then you could see the second tranche of people. So they cleared us. And once they got people into the car park, when those taxi buses were there, they literally just pushed on the bus. Every time a bus came up, they took 12 people, pushed on the bus and away and away and away and away and away. And Morris says to me, so we come through the cop lines and we're standing still in where the security people were. We're still within their cordon. I was having a cigarette and I'm looking at this other 200 people that are sitting there, 300 people going, well, like, you're next. You're about to go through what we've just went through. And Morris says to me, do you want to go and join them? And I says, Maura, we came together. If you want to join them, I'll do it. Like, I says, but we've just come through that. We're lucky we weren't assaulted. We were lucky, like. And I'm thinking in the back of my mind, I was thinking two things. Do we really want to go through this all over again? Do you know what I mean? And the other thing was, see if they watch us having left that first one to go and join the second one. Right. I mean, it would have been a huge solidarity push for all those people that were waiting to get physically kind of forcibly removed. And with hindsight, I'm sorry I didn't follow our inclination to join them, to be honest. But on the back of my mind, I'm thinking, we'll be a target. Like, as soon as we go over there, they're going to go, here, get them off. You know, we've just got them out of there. We can't have them join any other ones. So put my hands up to that. We maybe should have done that. So then we were forced into the car park. And of all the people from the first encirclement, we were the last people to, again, Maura wanted to be one of the last to leave the car park. So we were the last people to get on the last bus. Yeah. Knowing that these other people were about to be another hour in front of them, getting lifted and pulled and pushed into the things. So we ended up, I had guaranteed in my own mind, that's it, we're going to the airport and we're going to be deported. What happened was, took us back to Carroll, 1 o'clock in the morning, threw us out at the bus station at Tahrir, not Tahrir Square, but Tahrir bus station, 1 o'clock in the morning. And we had call it the foresight to book our hotel accommodation for that night, even though we'd left that morning saying, we're just going off to see something, and we had our bags and stuff walking out the door. And away to get the Uber down to Ismailia. So we were able to go back that night and stay in the hotel. So then what happened was, couldn't get the Al-Arish. It'd be pointless having like a cat and mouse game with the security things, you know, or try again the next day, get a taxi somewhere different, try to make your way down. I know, I've been there before. You have to go over the Suez Canal. And to stop nearly everything going over the canal. So you might get as far as the Suez Canal and then the hand goes up and you're pulled out and you're put back in the bus or the car or whatever it is and sent back up the road.
Are dealing with security state at the end of the day. So, I mean, once they're determined not to let you do something properly, you're not going to get to do it. So, I mean, it all finished in the end with not getting to Rafah, but I suppose you could say one of the successes of it was you showed up the Egyptian regime for what they are as having no real solidarity with Palestine and clamping down on this global act of solidarity that had moved to try and get into Rafah. Was that one benefit of it?
Yeah, it exposed the complicity of Sisi and his dictatorship. It showed that they are actually protecting Israel's flank. Because if you look at Gaza, Gaza's like 6 miles wide and 25 miles long. So that Rafah border crossing is in that wee small section, those 6 miles. Yeah. But the rest of it, which was historic Palestine, that's the Israeli-Egyptian border crossing. So, I mean, they're protecting the Israeli flank. They're protecting Israel from the wrath of the Egyptian people. Yeah. Because we met the Egyptian people. We got a day to walk around Cairo. We all, I don't want to really elongate this, but we were supposed to be there this Sunday the 22nd, but we left on the 15th because if we couldn't get down to Rafah, we weren't going to let this turn into, sure, we're in Cairo, the hotel's booked until Sunday, let's just have a holiday. I mean, how disrespectful would that be to the Palestinian people that you're there to support, to go, hey, we're on holiday, we'll just relax and have a beer and jump in a pool or something. So then, instead of going on the Sunday, the first flights that we could get were on the Wednesday. So we split on the 15th or 16th and headed back home. But of the Egyptian people we met, because Maura had her cafe on. Maura had her Leila Khalid t-shirt on. I have a wee tattoo here of the handler, which most people in the Arabic world know is the cartoon character, which, you know,
The wee
he's
BDS
supposed to,
character,
yeah. He'll only turn around when Palestine's free. So I was wearing a short sleeve top. So I was showing my tattoo. And know some people saw what she was wearing, saw the tattoo, and they were going like, free Palestine, free Palestine. So people in Egypt aren't in favour of a genocidal, what do you call it? They're just living under a brutal dictatorship. We were told that there are 100,000 political prisoners in Egypt. Now, I didn't know that before I went to Cairo. But it wasn't a failure, because if that was a failure, then the Madeleine was a failure, because it didn't get to Gaza. But there were tens of thousands of people tracking them. I'm tracking the handle on it at the minute. Tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people following that boat. Millions of people watching online, raising more awareness about what's happening. There's a guy called Robbie, somebody from Australia, Robbie Martin. He's on that boat, the handler. He was saying, once upon a time, he had 10 million followers because of the stuff that he's done in Palestine before. 10 million followers on X or Meta or whatever. It's now down to 1 million because they keep deplatforming him.
Yeah.
But he's on the boat going there. And I have a connection to him because I've seen all this stuff before. And I'm going, there's Robbie Martin. He's on the boat. A continuation of his journey with Palestine that he's been involved in for a decade, you know. So none of it's ever a failure. Even for the people in Cairo to know there were 3,000 people arrived in Cairo calling for the opening of the Rafah border crossing and that food getting in. But you're right.
It's an example to them is like if these people can come from abroad and brave the security services, maybe it's an impetus for them to do likewise. I suppose another potential benefit of it is, like, any time you see anyone take any kind of dramatic action which puts himself at risk, and the most dramatic one might be like Aaron Bushnell setting himself on fire. Anytime anyone does anything as dramatic as that, it prompts other people to ask, well, if they're willing to go that far, can I not at least do a little bit? So I think like the convoy you did is the same kind of thing in a sense.
Yeah, well, it was a success. It did raise awareness. It did give the opportunity. What was important from my perspective is that when people come back, they contacted the media. So something that's happening thousands of miles away doesn't affect people in Ardoyne or the Woodvale, doesn't affect people in the Fountain, in Derry or Shantallow or the Bogside, right? But if you have someone from Belfast or Dublin or Cork or Derry or Portaferry or whatever it happens to be, come back having gone through that experience, there's then a local interest.
Yeah.
Because that person gets into the local paper and people go, here, I went to school with him or her. Her son or her sister or her father works in our school, goes to our church, goes to our place of worship, whatever it happens to be. So,
because you were in local papers following that, weren't you? In the Irish
well,
News,
we're in the Irish News and the North Belfast News and the LD Town News. Now, we're not trying to promote ourselves at the end of the day. I'm not trying to promote myself here. It's about raising awareness and trying to get people to become more and more involved in what's happening. But then people, especially the local papers, as I say, I mean, if you're from Derry and you were on that and you get in the Derry Journal, you know, there's probably 200, 250 people who'd read that, who know who you are, who have a physical connection through work, through school, through the community, through civil society, through the church, whatever it happens to be. That draws them in. That draws these people in going, well, this is no longer something that's happening several thousand miles away. This is somebody who goes to my church. You know, I keep mentioning church for some reason. I don't even go to kind of the organised churches.
Over the football. Yeah.
I just mean that draws people in. Once there's a local interest, then people, you know, maybe ask why they've went, or maybe they've seen you do something before and they're going, oh, she's gone on something again, and she's doing this and she's doing that. And what you're talking about in a way is what I see with BDS, right? BDS Belfast empowers people. There are, in my opinion, organisations out there that are gatekeepers, that anything to do with Palestine should go through them, that anything that they're organising is maybe going through a third party, right? It's just my personal opinion. But what BDS does and what you're talking about is the empowerment of people. When you're talking about people who do something, it's leadership, but it's creating a space. So if you can create a space that someone feels safe to step into. And I mean, I've been on some of your kind of organised activities, and I know that there aren't any gatekeepers in BDS.
There's no real, it's designed to not have any real leaders, which has several functions. It's like they can't knock the head off it and wreck the whole thing, but it also makes people feel more included if everybody gets to have a role.
But that's the strength. The strength is that by not having a leadership, if that's the terms you want to use, you create leaders. When you have a leadership and when you have 2 or 3 people constantly being, not the face, I'm not talking about BDS here, just mean in general, the face of an organisation or an activity, then everyone goes to them. What do you think we should do? What's going to come next? And so I'm not talking about bottom-up kind of politics. I'm just saying, if you have a protest and you have an open mic and anybody who has something reasonable to add gets that opportunity, there's people who won't step forward until they're invited.
No, 100%.
There's people who would stand there saying, no, I'm just here to support what you're doing. But if you say to them, right, so you're supporting what we're doing, but you're part of what we're doing, is there a message you want to say to people about what's happening? I mean, you're empowering people.
100%.
That person steps forward. And that means the day that the leaders aren't there, there's always someone else to step into that gap. I've been involved in things where people are going, so-and-so's on holiday, we're going to have to wait till they come back. I mean, what are you talking about, guys? Yeah. Catch yourselves on, do you know what I mean? So that's the strength of BDS. That's the strength of, I know you're saying there's no leaders, I totally accept that, but there is a leadership role within every organisation, bringing people together, calling the meetings, allowing people to speak, having that freedom of opportunity to make a constructive adding to the overall thing. You know, there's people call things at the City Hall, they'll have their speakers lined up, they'll have people who they won't allow to speak. They'll have people who are on a tick box, you're going to say all the right things. But I mean, if you have an open mic, and so long as people aren't saying anything illegal, anti-Semitic at the end of the day, you know, you encourage people to step forward. And as I say, it's just important for me that we don't have gatekeepers. And what we do have is the empowerment of any individual to step forward and be able to take up a leadership role. So somebody who speaks in front of that microphone one day, you know, in a couple of years, like they could be, I don't know, they could be writing for the press, they could be have a very successful podcast, the RM, whatever they're doing. Like that first step that we talk about, people going on marches, the first step on the road to activism, the first step to people being able to empower themselves and have the confidence and the ability to step forward and say, stop, not on my name, enough's enough, is when people like BDS give people a microphone and empower them to say what they want within the law. And that gives people that self-confidence that at another stage, even the way people interact with we'll call them the state security services. I mean, I've seen the way people have reacted in the past. I've seen, I'm not talking about BDS now, but, you know, there's people who challenge the state and there's people who back down. And, you know, when one person challenges the police narrative of, well, under what law are you stopping me, under what legislation, what's your name, what's your number, I'm not necessarily encouraging that. But I mean, that allows other people, it is leadership. When people see what other people do, then they might step forward and say, even like de-arresting people. I'm not suggesting people do that either, but I mean,
I've seen it done.
So have I. Aye, so there's a role where any true, I'll say revolutionary, but we're not talking about revolution here. But a revolutionary leader, their job is to create other revolutionary leaders, not to be the person on the pedestal, not to be the iconic person that everybody looks up to and the hero worship and the personality cult. The idea, and I've seen it in BDS, is that the people who step forward at the beginning then step back and allow other people to step forward. And that to me, that's what it should all be about. That's what activism should be, empowering other people to step forward and giving them space.
Well, so that is the goal, and thanks for the kind words about
No,
BDS,
and only being honest.
and thanks very much for your activism yourself and all your fundraising efforts, but and of course for coming on the podcast.
Thank you very much.
Cheers.
Free Palestine.
Free Palestine.
Thank you.